Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Leadership Synergized. I'm Kevin Smith. This is where we talk to individuals who are making a difference in their communities, be it through leadership or through experiences that they've had in other walks of life, as they are here to share with you some of their lessons learned and some advice they've gained throughout their illustrious careers. And let me say, illustrious when it comes to talking about this individual's career with our special guest, Ms. Nancy Eckerle, is the right word and probably doesn't do justice. Ms. Eckerle represents community service at its best. And in the two episodes that she's agreed to join us, she's going to tell us about what's driven her to success and how she stayed in a row for almost 37 years as the executive director of the Jasper, Indiana Chamber of Commerce. Ms. Eckerle, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. I appreciate the invitation. It's nice to spend time with you, Kevin.
You're a very busy person. And as we were talking, you and I have met a few times, and your background, you're just awesome with the service you've brought in so many different ways. And I'm looking forward to the wisdom and the career guidance that you can offer me and those who are listening and watching these episodes. Why don't you take just a moment and tell us who Nancy Eckerle is and the career she's had to this point in time?
I think it just happened naturally. This is nothing that I guess you might say set out to be. And as far as being a leader, I really grew up as a very shy person, very shy child for sure. And then somehow, I don't know what happened to that. But I've been in the role of the chamber director for about 37 years in Jasper. I do have a degree in social work. And so it's always things that affect my heart, I think, that I get involved in because that's my nature and my background. I was a nursing home social worker prior to this job, and the nursing home I was working at was undergoing some, I guess you might say, administrative changes that I just wasn't happy with. And then I saw that the chamber director in Jasper was retiring. They were having this job available, and I knew nothing about a chamber of commerce, as most people probably really wouldn't. There's not a lot of books written on it, although during these 37 years, I've been more involved. There are chamber associations, there's other chamber directors, we chat often. And as they always say in the chamber world, when you've seen one chamber, you've seen one chamber. They're all different, they're all operated differently, but still basically the same thing of providing an economic development base to the community. So I've been affiliated with many organizations through the years. So what happens is people come knocking on the door. Would you help with this? Would you help with that? And in the beginning, yes, I'll help with everything and anything that I can get my hands on. And then it becomes more of, I think, a step back after a period of time. And what are some more things I'm more passionate about personally? Other things are, do those affiliations meet the needs of the chamber and the community? There's kind of two hats sometimes being worn, is what am I passionate about, but yet what also fits in with the mission statement of the chamber. In the meantime, I've also become elected to the city council. So that's another hat to wear. So I always have to be careful of what I do on a daily basis, because the chamber is non-political, but definitely non-political. And I really try to approach my city council position as not being political either, but what's for the good of the people in the community. I've been on many boards, the Jasper Strassenfest, the Du Bois Strong, our economic development group, the Jasper Action Team, which was a group at one time. It really doesn't exist. The Du Bois County Substance Abuse Council, some committees at the hospital, also organizing things like summer concerts, Old Jasper Day, Old Tannenbaum Days within Jasper, just a lot. And then another thing that I'm very proud of is helping to form the Women Empowering Women organization to help women network and connect with one another and just see some of the hurdles that women have to overcome in their careers and balancing family and work to make it all work at the end of the day.
Thank you for that. And taking all of that career piece and your service involvement You've also have been critical in a wonderful family.
When our kids were little, we definitely volunteered in their classrooms a lot, as much as we could because of our jobs. My husband retired from the police department, and then he also owned a retail store for many years, and he's retired now. But we've taught our children early on, and of course, our children are now adults, but we've taught them that it's so good to give back in any way that you can about things, of course, that you think are important to you. But just by volunteering in their classrooms, then, as they got older, we were not afraid to volunteer them to do things in the community also. For example, our daughter is on the Strassenfest committee. She will be the next Strassenfest chairman. Her father, my husband, was a Strassenfest chairman many years ago. So there's a lot of things that you just follow suit with. But definitely encouraging our kids and now our grandkids to get involved in things and just to be for others. I think that's a phrase I like to use, is to how do you do things for others, how to make other people have a better life, but still focusing on your life and making sure that you're getting everything done within your family to keep your family intact and a healthy family unit.
Ms. Eckerle, as you're describing and you're talking about the Strassenfest, you're describing the opportunities you and your family have had to take part in a number of fundraisers, a number of events. It really sends the message that Jasper, Indiana, a community of what, 15, 20,000 individuals here in 2024, strong German heritage. It is a very active community. The opportunity to serve the community exists in a number of ways. How have you seen that change since you've been the executive director, in particular, of these past 4 decades?
As a matter of fact, I just did an interview last week with an organization called Strong Towns. And a couple of years ago, Jasper was the winner of the Strong Towns competition, you might say. We won that award, and that was a really big deal. But reflecting back on it in the interview that was just done last week, the lady asked that a couple of us reflect on, now that we won that award, what is Jasper all about? My comment is we work well here together. So we might have organizations like just not every community, but many communities have things like Rotary, Lions Club, Kiwanis,
Hmm.
Optimist. And then we also have other things where there's paid positions, such as the Economic Development Group, or we have a Main Street program now, we have the Chamber, we have the city itself. Well, we all work together. And as my husband likes to say when I leave to go to a meeting, play well together tonight. And we do, we play well together, but we work well together because many times it's a lot of the same faces, a lot of the same people at the same tables at a lot of different meetings. But I think that's so important in a community so that you don't have this group isolated over here and this group isolated over here, and no one knows what anyone's doing. By bringing a lot of the same people to a lot of the same tables, we just work well together, and you can bounce ideas off and you can say, this other group's doing this. So by being there, you know what's happening with that in the whole community and can know that, okay, maybe this group needs to step back a little bit because that other group is handling that, whatever that task might be. But I really think that's the strength of our community, is that we have so many people involved. And now we're working very hard to bring another generation into what we're doing so that eventually in a few years, some of us can step back and turn it over to the next generation, but knowing that they also need to interact and be a part of not just one group that they're working on, but be a part of several things so that they can just be well versed in what the community is all about.
You bring up a very good point. I would think it'd be very easy in communities, in particular, such as you're describing, whether they're the size of Jasper, larger or smaller, to where these organizations could become competitive with one another and somewhat drive some counterproductivity.
Well, a great example is when we started our Main Street program about 4 or so years ago. A couple of us went to some other communities and we to find out how they ran their Main Street programs, because it's not. Sometimes they're run through the chamber, but it's a little bit different because they're focused only on the downtown district, and that
Mm.
district is defined. And I'll never forget being in a community and we were meeting with some of the Main Street people, and I said, "How do you interact with your merchants association and your merchants?" And they said, "Oh, we don't talk." Oh, no, that's not going to happen in Jasper. That those groups have to bounce off of each other and work together. Otherwise, they're fighting against one another and nobody's getting anything done and you're competing with one another. So I use that example a lot. And sometimes even in our Heart of Jasper, our Main Street program meetings, sometimes I'll bring that up and I'm like, remember in that other community I told you about, they don't work well together. We are not going to have that happen here. So I think it takes a strong leadership to say, we're not going to let that happen here. We are going to work together and we're going to have that energy and that synergy bounce off of each other.
Thank you. I would say it's a good example for many organizations to keep in mind. Take a moment and describe your organization in Jasper, Indiana. What is the Jasper Chamber all about? And I would also imagine it's really hard to separate what the chamber is about from what your role is.
Sometimes people just think I am the chamber because I've been doing it for so long. I don't mind that, but I'm also very knowledgeable that whenever I decide to retire and move on, a new chamber director will do things differently, and that's okay. But a chamber is really to bring together the business community. We're all about the business community, but then we're also about the quality of life in the community. So we'll do things, programs, seminars, workshops, things like that for the business community, and a lot of times focusing on hot topics, you might say. But then we'll also do networking opportunities where those business people can not just sit at a workshop and learn something, but yet they can mingle, socialize, exchange business cards, get to know maybe that face of that name that maybe they've heard about but never met that person. And we just had a very successful after hours event last week. Those things are very important so that our businesses, as our community is growing, because when I first started with the chamber, we were a community of about 10, 11,000. Now we're what you said, about 17, 18,000 people. That's a lot of different faces in the community. So I can go a lot of places and not know the people in the room, but typically that's really not the case. I may not know everyone like I did maybe 30 years ago. So anyway, that's part of the chamber. What we do is we bring people together, we provide informational things, especially on kind of hot topics, hot buttons of things that are going on in the business world. And just this has been several years ago, though, the county commissioners were going to vote to change our county to Central Time. The business community through the chamber spoke up and said, oh no, we don't want that. We want Eastern Time. So the chamber became very much of a leader in that we gathered the CEOs of the companies together. We gathered data. We had big rallies. And so depending on what the topic is, it can be a big group, it can be a small group, but we try to focus on things that are very important to the businesses that will help them grow, foster, and stay in business for many years to come. We're also very good at doing ribbon cuttings. Last year through the chamber, we literally did 40 some ribbon cuttings in Jasper. And the greatest part is we have a great mayor. So the mayor recognizes the chamber as being a lead business organization. We work well with the mayor. We want the mayor to be there to cut the ribbon. We coordinate that all with the mayor's office. So just those kind of things are very important. Also, there are other chambers that I talk to often that say, oh, City Hall has nothing to do with the chamber. We don't talk to the county commissioners, whatever. I'm like, you're doing something's not right because everyone has to gel well together. And I'm just a firm believer in that even though that's government and we are not government here, we still have to work well together and gel well together because let's say that we had just like they did in Princeton many years ago, we had Toyota, or they had Toyota come. Toyota also recognized that those groups worked well together down in that Princeton area. I think that was a selling point for Toyota moving there, in addition to having the available land and the proximity that they were looking for. But all of those things are so important.
Yeah, as you mentioned, Toyota manufacturing in Indiana and Princeton, roughly about an hour's drive from Jasper, give or take a few minutes here and there. But Jasper, having lived here for almost 20 years now in the Jasper area and community, is a business environment that is very diverse from service, medical, manufacturing. You talked about government. How does that play into either make it challenging for a chamber or make it more of a dynamic opportunity for a chamber to serve?
It takes away the hard challenges because we're not really out recruiting businesses to come locate here. We've done surveys for retail. We have a couple of strip centers, shopping. No, we don't have an indoor mall, but some shopping areas. So we've done some surveys to the residents. What do you want? What are you looking for? And then we'll feed that to those shopping center areas and even to our downtown area. And then they'll know, oh, this is what people are looking for. And by doing that, we got like a Kohl's, a TJ Maxx, and several other businesses that were then recruited to come to our area. The bigger businesses, the manufacturers, which we have many of, we work very hard to try to keep in sync with them also. So that's probably the biggest challenge, is how to meet the needs of some of the bigger industries, because they can do all that in-house. They don't need the chamber to do programs on human resource things or whatever, but we do anyway, because we also like to gather, let's say, like the HR people together, or support things that Indiana Work One is doing. So we're also a supporter of other programs that are going on, not just making up things ourselves, but networking and working well with other organizations that provide a lot of those same services.
Ms. Eckerle, reflecting back nearly 37 years ago when you first started in this role, how has that business landscape changed?
During that period of time, I'd say there's been several manufacturing businesses that have either sold or maybe closed their doors. And so you end up with these big old buildings that are in your community that are really eyesores. You have to have a thought on what could go in those. And we can't solve all those problems and necessarily fill those. But by being a proactive chamber and a very active community, those buildings have gotten filled, or are they been torn down and something else put on those properties. But that shows you the vitality of our community, that others from out of the area, maybe like the Indianapolis, Cincinnati, whatever, those kind of areas, they've think enough of Jasper to bring their dollars here and invest in our community, to turn maybe a couple of factory buildings into apartment buildings, or maybe tear one down. So the synergy that we have with our library and our arts center developed our cultural center here. That just doesn't happen in all places, because those are two different taxing entities, and those two taxing entities ended up working well together and forming a wonderful cultural center for our community. So I think you always have to be on the lookout, and also, again, working well with city government to make sure that the story city government is telling is the same thing the chamber is telling, and that we're working well together to form what that story is for our community.
Hey, you've talked a lot in this episode related to the working relationship that the multiple entities and organizations, government, non-government, have in your community in Jasper, Indiana. You've talked about visiting other communities to where that may not be existent. It just seems to make sense, right? Because you're all working for the same end, whether you use different words when that's described, you all meaning those leading these organizations and businesses. Why might you suspect that, for lack of a better word, those connections don't occur elsewhere? What are some reasons maybe where a chamber doesn't get the support or the interaction that's necessary?
I think it's a power struggle
Mm.
is what it is. You might have, and you have to know your, as they say sometimes, you have to know your lane. And so at the chamber, our lane is doing things like quality of life and workshops and meeting the needs of our members and those kind of things. City government has another lane. They work on things like roads and infrastructure and those kind of things. We don't ever want to jump over into that lane, and because then that's when these hard feelings
Mm.
happen, and they become very personality conflicts, I think, is what happens a lot of time. So you have to say, okay, this is what we do. This is what they do. And it's the same thing with our economic development organization. Their director and I have talked numerous times about, okay, they handle more, maybe recruiting a bigger business to come. We handle the smaller businesses and the retail businesses and those type of things. And you have to have that conversation about whose lane that is. Otherwise, you're veering into something that you shouldn't. And then those communication and those the workability just doesn't happen. So I think we all work hard here to make sure that we are in our lane, but yet if we want to go over there, you bring them in as a partner or they bring you in as a partner. The
But
partnerships are important.
thank you for that word partnership. I know you're extremely busy and in everything you're doing in serving, but in your role as the chamber director, talk a bit, if you will, around the value of that futuristic vision when it comes to the leaders of a city.
It does. And I actually just had a conversation with someone about that earlier today. And this person was really wanting to move some people into a leadership position when they were just their very infancy in the infancy of being involved in an organization. And I said, I think you're putting the cart before the horse because they need to be molded and trained into that leadership position. Again, that doesn't really happen, let's say, in city government. You can have anybody run for city council or for county council or county commissioner. They don't have to have any experience in that. But I think those that have taken more time to have some and that go to, there's always state organizations for these type of things, go to those training sessions, learn what your role is all about and learn what that, whether it be the Rotary Club or whatever it might be, they all have learning and training sessions to learn what your organization is about and always be an adult learner, always continue to learn. I think that's a key in all of these roles of leadership too.
Well said. Thank you for your time. I'm so looking forward. Next week, we're going to jump into more of the networking, connecting, and relationship building that Ms. Eckerle has indicated gets done with other chambers, be them city, county, or statewide chambers. Ms. Eckerle, thank you for your time today.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening. Remember, to move forward, it doesn't have to be in a rush or hurry. We can be still and move forward and be very successful while impacting others with the value we bring. Thank you for taking the time. We appreciate you. God bless you. Have a wonderful day.